So, another week, another pair of episodes to talk about. Toqger. It starts off with this element of Tokatti's character we really haven't seen take focus, and that's the worst kind of way you can start this off. I mean, if it's something like an interest that hasn't been exposed to before, or something like that, that's not too bad, but I'm talking about an element of his character, in that he's indecisive. And we really haven't seen much of that at all. Not more than anybody else. And suddenly he's wishy-washy, which means he takes a lot of time to decide because he keeps juggling multiple aspects of a choice and thus freezes up. And no, not really. It's all supposed to tie into the Shadow Kaijin of the episode Night as they invade another shadow town, and his, thing is making games out of bad choice and worse choice, and making no choice at all creates, despair, and that's how he captured the shadow town for the Shadow Line, and it doesn't work really well. It's an important thing to showcase, but it's the framing, the setup for it that was pretty poor. Akira, we finally learn what his deal is, in that, yeah, it's what we thought it was. Schwartz would only give him the drill Russia if he agreed to join with him in whatever exploits he's planning. We don't exactly know what it is, but it's likely continuing the insurrection against Zet and the rest of the Shadow Line to get Greta back. At least that's my take on it. So, because of that, Akira is rushing around trying to find all the hidden shadow towns because he doesn't know how much time he has left. As they get attacked by knights, Tokatti and Akira are separated from the rest, and Akira essentially promises him that when the hard decision comes, and when Akira turns into their enemy, due to his promise to Schwartz, that they will not hesitate in stopping him from himself. At least that's my take on it. It might just be the continuance of, I'm looking for my place to die, hey, I'm Shadow Line, they're Rainbow Line, even if I'm with them right now, it's going to end with them killing me, or something like that. Wouldn't surprise me if that was what it was intended to be, but we see a bit of backtracking with Akira that... I say backtracking in he's one way at the beginning of the episode and he's back to how he was at the end of the episode. Sort of. Because Akira was rushing around to find the Shadow Towns, and specifically their hometown that's hidden. So when they see it's not their home, Akira's like, alright, let's go and find the next one. Let's not waste any time here. And considering they don't spend that much time freeing a Shadow Town, it's probably he's thinking more accumulated time, and this is something I could be doing searching, even though, other things distract me too. And it seems kind of callous, but one, he's a monster, so he doesn't know human values so much. Two, he's on a time limit that he doesn't know when will end, so it's kind of understandable. But he could have left while the others tried to free it so they wouldn't be wasting time, and, clued them into this somehow that I had made a deal with Schwartz, I'm not going to be with you that much longer, due to it, but he's not. Because tension, I think. This ended up being just okay. I admit I didn't like the framing for it, because, Tokatti's... Like I said, the Toqger are okay when not around right, and then you do something like this where it's assails one of the characters that really doesn't need it. I mean, he's pretty much the stereotypical unconfident, insecure, not exactly antisocial, but introverted, nerdy type, and, he's got the stereotypical crush on the, what's the phrase? I want to say Genki girl, since Mio's got, she's the good cook, she's the athletic one, she's the bossy one. I'm trying to remember what this kind of dynamic is in the terms of tropes, and I'm completely blanking on that, because I know I've seen a few things that are kind of like that. And yeah, considering most of the time when they get their solo episodes, they're bad or do nothing to improve the standing of their characters. Yeah, this was not a good one. Oh, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't good, but in presentation, it was okay. Drive. I liked this one a bit more than the last two episodes. Mainly because it wasn't, screwing with the dynamic. It was telling a story with the focus on the investigation while revealing more elements of the Roidmude's modus operandi. We learn in this episode that the Roidmude evolved initially by seeing... Okay, their human forms are based on real people, meaning they take all of the elements of that person and use it to form their consciousness, their obsession, what they use to evolve. In the last arc, we had this Roidmude focused on heaviness, force, power, and he had taken the form of a really large, hefty, bulky, fat guy to do that. The one before that had taken on the form of a painter, and then kept the painter around. So this makes sense. This time, instead of taking the form, he acted more like a greed from O's. Now, if you haven't seen O's, watch it. It's one of the best Kamen Rider series out there. But in O's, the greed would use a piece of their body called a cell metal and insert it into a host that would take on their fondest desire and try to give it to him while also amplifying the desire for that. So they would want more and more and more of it, and the greed, by proxy of the yummies, devour that greed by turning it into the cell metals that they turn into parts of their body. The yummy become the monsters that are the reservoirs of all the cell metals that are collected. So by defeating the yummies, or just having them return to their creators, masters, they can get the cell metals out of them. And this is kind of what this Roidmude had did. It's a mutual agreement. The host, Kusaka, why is it with that name in Kamen Rider always leads to bad things? Kusaka wants to get the dirt on this construction company that a long time ago, 6 months, right after the global freeze incident, he and his partner had found evidence that they were shortchanging their construction of things to, embezzle the money and use substandard components in constructing buildings. And thus, the Roidmude, to give him that desire and thus use it to evolve himself, they partnered up. So this adds a whole new level to the dynamic, because first case was just a Roidmude assaulting humans to bring its own level of perfection through physical beauty, which had to be an obsession of the main host. Second one was Second one was, yes, continuing the mastery of painting by actually capturing people and taking their essence into themselves. Third one was devouring anything he could to become more powerful. And now this one, it's sating. It's using the photography-based abilities it's getting through the photographer, through Kusaka that he possessed, to delete parts of buildings. And presumably, when he deletes part of the buildings, he takes that matter and adds it to his own power, on top of, the satiation of the desire of Kusaka to get this company. And so the entire thing starts with a lot of them, the Special Investigation Unit investigating the collapsing buildings. Thing is, because they're doing it from range, there's no density shift particles being noted at the scenes, which is very clever. And I like that. I like when the villains are smart and the heroes are smart, and no one is coming off as stupid. It's not like, I commented on this with the Gotcha Man movie. You screw up trying to get into a place, and you get in anyways. That's not showing anyone is competent. Because I love competent villains. I love competent heroes that actually need to be clever in outsmarting both sides. That is a good thing, and very good contrast from the last two episodes. Again, what tips them off was Kusaka's former partner. Excuse me if I can't remember his name, because he looks like I've seen the Cutie Honey Tokusatsu series, and he looks like one of the characters from that. I can't remember his name from that series either. I'm terrible with names. So this other guy is, since Kusaka's been getting the big scoops on the collapses, decided to go and try and find out the Kamen Rider's identity. So, because that's a big thing, that's a big question. He's the big urban legend. And so, since the Special Investigation Unit is the one that most encounters him because of the Roidmude investigations, it seems like a pretty smart thing to do. Again, being smart, that's a good thing. I think the camera guy is going to become a recurring character, so because we see a bit more characterization than you normally expect, plus, a knowledgeable source of information. If not, expanded member of the cast, at least recurring, possibly. I'm second guessing this all, so if this ends up being wrong, meh. But you kind of see a bit more into his character than you'd see in a normal guest star, especially since he's palling around. It takes a, I wouldn't say significant focus, but he's constantly in the scenes of this episode. And we see a bit more into his character in that, even though Kiriko doesn't like him and suspects him, and Shinosuke thinks he's alright, you see that he actually is a decent person, because when the Roidmude first attacks, of his two attacks of the episode, he helps save one of the workers that is checking the place out for anybody injured. I forget their names, the actual rescue personnel that would do that, go into a collapsed building and search for survivors. Maybe, possibly a division of... I am totally blanking on what I wanted to say. It's been one of those days. So yeah, they see him as a decent person and could evolve into recurring character. Anyways, they eventually figure it out by checking security footage of Kusaka around the buildings when they were collapsing and coordinating it to the old story. So they go to confront him as he starts to attack another building. And then we get all the stuff about Kusaka and the Roidmude around then, but then Chaser shows up, and Well, the episode ends on a cliffhanger with Kiriko being about to be shot by one of Chaser's new arm attachments. Now, we were shown Chaser's arm equips 2 episodes ago. It's what warranted the introduction of Type Wild, and okay, I like these now. They're based off of 3 objects, and they're the same as the Roidmude bodies: the bat, the cobra, and the spider. Except the arm attachment seems kind of... When I first saw the spider one that becomes a giant claw, it had these stylistic elements that made it look more like a folded bat wing. And now we see why that is, because after he equips one, the entire armament just reconfigures itself. It's like it doesn't detach and dematerialize to create a new armament. It just folds it. The spider one is like a claw, and then when it goes to cobra, it folds back and lets out a stinger. And then when it goes to bat, it turns into a shape of a crossbow and just fires arrows. And that is clever. That is very interesting, design and stylistic wise, in that they're all operating on the same thing. And now the design element that made it look like a bat makes more sense to me, because it's a hybridization of the 3 seen in the object and not just one or the other. Type Wild still looks terrible, by the way. That's probably not going to change in opinion. Trying to think of anything else relevant. But yes, I like this more than the last one. I don't think my complaints are gone. It's just that it's focusing on the case while moving the story forward. That is the good thing. Because last time, the case was thrown to the curveball. Plus, it's continuing that ideological divide that justifies Chaser's actions to partially to the audience, and also what Shinosuke is doing, because Kusaka was motivated in his entirety by his story getting shut down about exposing corruption, so bad people are still getting away, thus Chaser's argument isn't invalidated. That's the good thing. It's showing the divide still has merit, and what he's not going to have a change of heart by proving that his suppositions about humanity are wrong, because they're not. We can be absolute dicks to each other. Yeah, I got nothing else. Hopefully this will be a bit shorter than I usually got. I will see you all next week.